I don't know if you recall, but a couple of months ago, ESPN unveiled this performance index for American players. It's based on a mathematical formula. They take every American player, they factor in how many minutes they've played for their club, how good the club is, which they base on the Opta rankings, and then their importance to their club, which they take the team's results with the American on the field and without. And you put it all together and it spits out a list. They fully admit there are some flaws. It can produce some odd results, but overall, it does give you an interesting picture of how Americans have performed around the world this season. I mentioned they unveiled the first edition in March. They updated it last week with the European season winding down. And in their updated list, the top five are Weston McKennie, number one, Christian Pulisic, two, Anthony Robinson, three, Sergiño Dest, four, and Malik Tillman, five. The only two non-European-based players in the top 20 are Zendejas at 8 and Brandon Vasquez at 19. They both play in League MX. The highest MLS player is Quinn Sullivan of the Philadelphia Union at 26. Haji Wright is 28. Josh Sargent is 48. Thoughts?
Josh Sargent is what?
48. He gets punished because A, Norwich doesn't factor very high in Opta's club rankings, and B, in terms of the minutes played, remember, he missed a lot of time at the start of this season. Yeah. Haji Wright similarly gets punished because Coventry City aren't that high in the club rankings, so that's the reason for those positions.
Yeah, okay, so we know that lists click, they sell, they are catnip to folks, and evidence of what we're talking about right now. We also know that they're subjective. Yes, there are criteria, and I appreciate that they recognize that this isn't perfect. It will never be. I feel there's a sense of deja vu when we're talking about this, especially when I do my MLS MVP and all that kind of stuff. I'm okay in terms of the first two, and I think whatever calculations they are using, it came out with two appropriate, Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic. I can certainly argue Christian Pulisic, and I think that they are interchangeable at 1 and 2. And before I looked at the list, because when we sent this around, I had Christian Pulisic at 1 and Weston McKennie at 2. But I'm good with either way, and there is a debate as to where they fall, but I think everybody can agree that they both had stellar seasons and are worthy of that one spot. Anthony Robinson, he just kind of continues on and has been good for a long time, and maybe he even suffers because of his continuity. Sergiño Dest, I think at 4 is okay. Malik Tillman, then you're getting into like Chris Richards, Zendejas. Okay, again, this is club form. And Balogun at number 9. The thing about Josh Sargent, before seeing this list, if you would ask me where Josh Sargent was, there's not a chance in hell that I would have said he was not in the top 10. And so I think I would put Josh Sargent much, much higher, obviously, than they had. You said the only MLS player, or the highest MLS player, was who?
Quinn Sullivan at 26. Now, MLS gets hurt a little bit because of the calendar.
Yeah.
The time frame doesn't cover that much MLS play, so they also acknowledge that in their write-up for this list.
It brings up a bigger question, and I think I'm going to talk about it later on in the show about these heady days in which we live in, and the confidence and I think fair excitement about the talent and the depth of talent and the sheer numbers of talent. And yet, are they that much better than they were in the past? Anyway, it's a longer conversation, but
I agree. That's where I was going to go to. I think you look at this list, and what struck me is that marriage of Americans starting regularly for quote unquote big European clubs. You're still not seeing a lot of that. It's only a couple of guys on this list. And then you start working your way down, and it's either guys that are playing a lot of minutes, but for lesser clubs, or guys that are backups for big clubs like a Moose or a Timmy Weah. So you still want to get to that point, if you're the U.S., where you have a squad full of players that are playing regularly for the big boys in Europe. And we don't quite have that yet. So to me, that undercuts a little bit of this notion that Berhalter haters like to put forth, that he's squandering what is this mind-blowing array of talent based on their Yanks abroad exploits.
Well, I do think that he has talent, and I do think if you're pick your coach from the past, Bob Bradley, Steve Sampson, Bora, Bruce, they would certainly look at and Jurgen would certainly look at what Greg has and say, I don't want to hear any whining or complaining, given the talent that they had. But maybe to your point, we have overvalued the players that we have, and I think that's letting Greg Berhalter off the hook, to be quite honest with you. I think the expectations that we have relative to the talent that we have, I think that they are fair and justified. But I understand your argument, and I understand the argument out there about what this team is and isn't. And when it comes to, because somebody asked me this on X a while ago about, for example, the Olympics coming up and the development and all these players that we have. I was thinking last night, I was out to dinner when we were talking, when was the last time a player just kind of crashed into American soccer and everybody went, wow. And when I say American soccer, not just in terms of what he's doing on the field for the club, but also relative to the national team. We've really kind of set the usual suspects when it comes to the national team. And you look at this list and you look at all of the talent, quote unquote talent, that we have out there, and this long list of players that are playing over in Europe. And just because you're playing in Europe doesn't mean you're better than anybody else, and doesn't even necessarily mean that you're elite or good. But we do associate that with quality. But it's been a long time since we got excited about a young player for the national team coming in the way that we did. And I know that Christian Pulisic is a unique type of player, but we should have had somebody. And Flo is a little bit different. The Flo is, Flo Balogun is a little bit different. We did get excited at that point, but I'm just, my major point here is this summer, for example, when the Olympics are happening, obviously the men qualifying for the first time in multiple cycles now. I don't care if they win a game. What I care is that when you come out of the Olympics, there are some players that we say, you know what? That is a player for the national team. That is a player that can come in and challenge for a spot and challenge all of these players that now just seem to, be with this team on a consistent basis. That to me is a successful Olympics. I'm not sure it's going to happen. And my point is that hasn't happened in a long time. And that's a little bit disappointing. And that's a little bit concerning. What else, Mosse?
Well, you'll notice there are two PSV players in the top 5. Destin Tillman, Pepe is 21. We talked about this on our last pod this past weekend. PSV clinched the Eredivisie title. Did you see the scenes from their celebrations? Ain't no party like an Eindhoven party.
Hey, listen, to the victor go the spoils. And, you have a season like you did, and we've talked about how good it was. And, I mean, they didn't mess around. So I would expect them to party like it's 1999.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.